Hey, honey, I got a great idea. Let's go visit the dude with the big scary house out in the middle of nowhere. What could possibly go wrong?
I can't wait to talk about Cellar Door. I watched it the other day, and it is just such a gripping tale from start to finish. I love how complex both you and Jordana's characters are in this film. My first question, though, last we spoke was for Teacup. Why do your characters keep cheating on their wives?
It's really funny. I reread the script this morning and yesterday and this morning to familiarize myself again with it because it's been a while since we shot it. And I was like, wow, it was hit me like a ton of bricks that it was very similar things. You know, the impetus for both these things is me stepping out on my wife. I don't know. I think probably I enjoy flipping that on an audience. You know, I think, you know, when you've been playing likable leading men for a while, and there's just such a push, especially on television, I find, not so much in film but on television, to create likable characters. It's fun to subvert that, I guess, and to challenge an audience and play an unlikable guy. For me, I've always enjoyed that. From the minute I started acting, I've enjoyed playing, you know, that kind of guy, a very human guy. I mean, I think that's why you do movies and television shows and characters, because 99% of the time you don't do the bad thing. And I think in movies you have to do the bad thing, or there's just boring people. So this guy and my guys tend to make bad decisions, and I enjoy that. I enjoy doing that for sure.
It does present a unique challenge for the audience to then find a way to empathize with the character, especially.
Well, especially in Teacup, I think that's much more challenging than this. I mean, in a movie, it's different. It just has a different feel to it than a TV show where then you're asked to go on the journey. And in Teacup, I love that because that was ultra challenging. And I think, you know, the powers that be were nervous about it as well. But I love that aspect of that. That's Ian McCulloch for you, though. But this one is more of, yeah, movies I was weaned on. Michael Douglas characters in the 80s and 90s. He explored a lot of these things in different sorts of movies, and I love those movies, and I wish we did more of those. So when I read this, definitely had a feel of something that could have been made in the 50s or the 90s in terms of certain things, Hitchcockian way, and also like the fatal attraction aspect of things I loved.
I do, yeah. Like you say, I love that this feels like a very timeless story. It could be from whenever. And so, what did you find then was one of the big keys for you to finding the heart of your character in this film?
You know, that wasn't really a challenge. It was on the page. To be fair to the writers, it was right there. Like that's why I was attracted to it. It was well written. You know, the complication. You have this immediate reaction to things. Either I can bring myself to this story and help, you know, advance the story, bring it to life, or not. You know, and I thought, wow, whatever. If I have a certain skill set, I thought it would lend itself to this story. My complicated self on screen will help this guy come to life, and it was that kind of connection. So, you know, there wasn't an intellectual decision about, oh, I'm going to do this and that and the other. And no, I understood the character right away, and I again liked that he did the bad thing and then kind of descended into madness. That was fun for me.
It was quite the descent that happens in this movie too, and you have it right with Jordana Brewster right there. And I spoke with her yesterday, and I loved hearing her side of getting to work with you, having poking fun at each other throughout filming and whatnot. And I'd love to hear for you what it was like, you know, finding that dynamic and that rapport with her for this complex relationship.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. You know, I've known Jordana a bit off and on through the years, and you know, you never know when you get to work with somebody, but she was great, total pro, and very fun to work with. You know, she puts me at ease too. She's very professional, always on top of her game, and I'm a little bit more chaotic and crazy, and she's very calm and easy to work with, which is great. And we just had a good rapport. You know, yeah, when you go to do complicated scenes, you really want that kind of acting partner, and she was great. She was really easy to work with, and we just had that. Again, I think a lot of it starts on the page. That's why obviously writers are so important. But once that's there and you have a really good acting partner, you can kind of like bring it to life much easier.
So did you find that there was one scene in particular that having her as your partner really helped you sort of find the flow of what the scene was meant to be?
There were a bunch of scenes that are really hard when you start to get into the third act and fourth act, when the turns are there. Those are the harder scenes to do. That, wow, you really have to, you know, as an actor, there's easier stuff, and then you get to the tough stuff, which isn't always the emotional stuff, but more of the complicated jumps you have to do with the story, especially in something like this. And having that rock solid partner, as Jordana was, made all those scenes towards the end. She had the heavy lifting much more than me. She had to kind of like push those scenes to where they needed to go, obviously, if you know the movie. So, and she did that. She did that amazing.
I love. Well, I'm glad you had her. I'm glad you had her as your partner, because it really came together so well. And so I don't want to quite get into spoilers, but I would love to hear.
Yeah.
Did you and Vaughn ever kind of discuss what was actually in the cellar? Or did you leave it like a Pulp Fiction thing where it never really mattered what was in there?
There was some discussion, yeah, but the more I heard about it, the more it just like, everybody had different ideas. So I had to make up my own. So that's why, at this point in my career, when the script is strong and good and you have certain ideas, too much discussion about scenes and talk isn't always the greatest. Some of the best directors I've worked with now. I was lucky enough to work with David Cronenberg a couple of years ago, and it was the lack of him wanting to talk was amazing. He didn't want to talk about anything. He was like, I hired you, you go do it. I don't want to talk about it. And that's kind of how I am now a little bit. If you work with younger directors and whatever, I remember being younger and wanting to discuss. And so everybody's on the same page. I just want to go with my instincts. And I made a decision about what was in that cellar door and what wasn't in that cellar door and all that. So that made it easier for me just to go and do it.
So when you get to the big reveal at the end, then about what happened with you and Jordana's characters and what that means going forward, what do you think is going through your character's head, especially in that final scene where he still seems to be sort of processing everything?
Yeah, I mean, just that, like, it's the floor dropping out from under you, really, where you realize I don't want to give too much away, but maybe we can do this after, whatever, show this after. But yeah, your wife isn't who you thought she was, in a sense. So, there's turns there that are really fun for an audience to go through. It was fun to read. I was like, wow, this is going to be great. And again, really brings you back to movies that we don't make that much anymore. This could have been made in the 50s or the 90s in a certain kind of sense. So, yeah, I love that aspect of it. But really, at this point in my career, too, I'm always thinking about the audience now, too. It's like, wow, the audience is going to be, if they're with us to this point, this is going to be a great turn.
So speaking of the audience, then I'd love to hear, what part of this film are you the most excited for people to get to see? Is it the story? Is it the characters? Is it your performances? What are you the most excited for?
Yeah, I would say with this one, everything's different. Sometimes when you choose to do a movie or lucky enough to get a part in a movie, it can be based on a character that you're, small part in a small part in a bigger movie that you're most excited about. But I would say it's the psychological thriller elements of this movie I'd be most excited for an audience to check out and to see a different kind of quote unquote horror movie that is totally different than something maybe they're used to seeing. That part of things, I think people will really respond to if they're into it. And it's what I responded to when I first read it. So hopefully they're into it.
I hope they are too, and I hope it creates a lot of discussion, and hopefully not too much about what's in the cellar door. Like we said, that part's not as important as everything else that happens. I think I have enough time for a couple questions, so I did want to also ask. I mentioned Teacup at the start, and today's the finale, and I am heartbroken by what went down with James and where he's left. How did it feel for you coming to that conclusion, especially since it is sort of a full circle redemption of sorts for him?
That's the coolest part. I mean, like we talked about at the beginning, it's interesting when we start, where he started, stepping out on his family, basically, not just his wife, but his family. And then we spent 8 episodes winning, not going out intentionally to win his family back by the thriller circumstances of the piece. He's forced into this redemptive role, and he really goes there and, gets his family back, gets his wife back. And, in that, it brings the audience back with him, I think. So that was really fun. And I knew where it was going from the beginning when I signed on to do that show. So, it was a great character in that way. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that we get to do more seasons on that. But yeah, we'll see.
So I read recently too that Ian said you are outright dead, but do you have a different idea on that for the future?
Ian's adamant that I am dead. Yeah. I'm dead. Believe me, there was convincing going on that I did not win those arguments. I think in today's world, you need to see the head getting chopped off. That's, you know what I mean? The way we did it, yeah, we'll see. I don't know, but he is I love Ian so much. I'm so proud of what he did, and I think that arc is great, and he wants to leave it where it is. So that's that.
Well, we know that Ellen's still on the farm, so maybe if we come back to it, there.
Oh, hey, that's what I said. I said you're leaving characters there, and I don't know. We don't see his head getting or his heart getting out of his body, so who knows? The audience will have maybe some ideas.
Fingers crossed then that A, season 2 happens, but B, that he finds a way to meaningfully.
Just do that first part first.
Yes, definitely. So coming back to Cellar Door, I love that you also get to work with Lawrence Fishburne, who obviously an incredible actor, and you have his character is also just so uniquely eccentric in this world. What is it like watching him bring this figure to life while having to remain in your own character's mindset?
Yeah, it was wild. You're with these people like that show up and these amazing actors, and they're a big part of why the movie got made in the first place. Them saying yes, and then they come in and there's people like Lawrence Fishburne. It's easy to get lost in the scenes, and I did a couple of times. I've been watching him for so long. I've been watching him since I was a kid. You know what I mean? So. He's an amazing actor. He was really an amazing warm presence too, which is always super nice. He had a lot of fun doing that part, and I don't know. When I'm watching them, I'm envious of the ease in which he approaches work and the warmth that he has and how great he is, and all of those years he's been doing it. And he's a lovely man and was great in that part. Not an easy part, but he made it look easy.
He kills it in this movie, and like I said, I'm not trying to blow smoke. I can't wait for people to see all of it because it's just truly a great film, and I can't wait to spread the word. So, Scott, I see I'm out of time, so I'll get on out of here. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me again, man. I really do appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much, man. Good talking to you.
All you had to do was just stay away.
No, John!
Enough!